Hi, I think we're on. Yes? Welcome everybody to what is becoming a strange new normal, our fourth Seen and Heard. We're really glad you're here. I'm getting strangely used to talking to myself now. Um, Not great, but you know, it's a substitute for the moment. I wanted to start by sort of reminding you about Amelia's picks from Saturday's Seen and Heard to make sure you'd made the connection. There was one connection to Hartford Stage. I bet many of you guessed it, but the toilet paper kayak, that wonderful skit with Dylan and Becky Baker, was written by Sarah Gouter, so our own playwright of Seder. So I just wanted to give a shout out to that and to all the great new play work that's happened at Hartford Stage. Um, this is, as I mentioned, our fourth 4 weeks in a row. We're getting used to this Wednesday hour. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for those who are joining us for the first time, and thanks for returning. So I'm Amelia Bensusan, artistic director and co-CEO with my partner, Cynthia Ryder. I'm trying to remember to look at the camera instead of looking at the faces of people. I far prefer seeing all of you than staring at the screen light on my computer, but I'm doing my best. So, Cynthia, I'm going to welcome you on so we can chat about all things Hartford Stage and Seen and Heard. The one thing I would say to all of you is to remember this isn't a substitute for live theater. This is a placeholder. This is a form of communication so that we can stay connected to the theater we love and to the community that means so much to all of us, the theater going community, the Hartford community, the national theater committed to the theater community, all of you. So what's really precious to us about this is the feeling that we're reaching out and talking about something that matters to all of us, not that we're trying to replace the experience of sitting in our theater. So sorry, Cynthia, I introduced you and then remembered I wanted to say that. So, but now Cynthia Ryder, managing director of Hartford Stage, what team wouldn't want to take over a theater in their first year during a pandemic? I mean, it's really, Cynthia's still muted. So
Sorry about that.
here we are.
Here I am.
Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be with all of you. So I just had a couple of things I wanted to say just here at the beginning. First of all, you know that one of the things we've started is to have a little specialty cocktail here for our virtual cocktail hour. Just like we do at the theater at performances, we always have a specialty cocktail at the bar. So tonight I have this beautiful gin fizz, which is a cocktail of the period. It is actually mentioned in A Wilderness, made by my personal bartender, my husband, Stuart, who is also the bartender in the show, in the cast. So I get my own gin fizz. I wish you were all here to try one with me. I've never had one, so this will be a treat today. I want to let you know that one of the biggest things that we've been struggling with everyone when we had to postpone all our programming this spring, is knowing what to do going forward. So what we have decided is we are going to reschedule both A Wilderness and the History of Comedy Abridged to this fall. So those two productions that we are so looking forward to doing, we will still be bringing those to you in the fall, and more details will be coming out soon on dates and all of that tonight. I want to let you know that subscriptions are on sale for next season. 4 of our titles have been announced. We've talked about that in previous Seen and Heards, and you can go online at hartfordstage.org to hear more, read more about those. 2 more titles still to come. That season will officially begin then in January, after we've done the Complete History of Comedy Abridged, A Wilderness, and the annual Christmas Carol, our holiday show. And one of the ways you can best support Hartford Stage or any performing arts organization during this time is to renew for next season. We will eventually be back together, and we're so looking forward to it. And your gesture of support, those of you who have been longtime subscribers, we hope you'll subscribe again. And those of you who've maybe been thinking about subscribing, please do that. It's a way you can really invest and help us be stronger for the future. And one other thing I wanted to announce, we'd been talking about it, seen and heard, and online and social media. We had a $50,000 challenge from two generous donors. They are going to match all gifts up to 50,000. We crossed that threshold just the other day, so we made our first 50,000, and a small group of board members stepped up and have issued an additional $50,000 challenge. So if you haven't given, if you've given, but you have a little extra that you could give at this time, go online to hartfordstage.org, donate now, and your gift will be matched 1-to-1 up to another 50,000, total of $100,000. So we're so grateful. We've had over 240 donors helped us match that first 50 gifts from $10 to thousands of dollars. And so that gesture of so many people standing up, making that gift for us, we really appreciate it. So more to Amelia and more to All Wilderness. Thank you all.
It seems really unfair that I don't get a gin fizz delivered at my house. I just, you know, one of the many challenges of Zoom life is we don't get to share food and drink.
It's actually really good.
Oh, I'm very jealous. Well, I'm drinking hot tea to start. I feel like I should do a disclaimer. I'm coughing a lot today because of my allergies. So if I go into a coughing fit, I'll mute. But I'm not dying. I really feel fine. I just can't breathe. It's sort of my life as me. We're going to do one thing slightly differently tonight for those of you who are, our stalwarts. We're going to do Q&A throughout the session. We realize that we've kind of, this business of holding the questions till the end is sort of killing the sense of a true conversation with all of us. So Scott and Rachel, shout out to Scott Bartleson. I'm about to hand this over to him, and Rachel Alderman. They're extraordinary, as well as the rest of the Hartford Stage staff. None of us would be here without them, quite seriously at this point, because Scott controls all the media. So we could all just be cut off. Yep. And that would be it. So this for me is actually a Seen and Heard I've really looked forward to, because this week would have been my second week of rehearsals for All Wilderness. And instead, Scott, don't go away, because I am going to hand it off to you. I'm just sort of explaining that the gin fizz and the summer drink, we're somewhere pretending that Our Wilderness is in rehearsal. And more about that. We mean this to be a bit of a taste of what a first rehearsal would be like. And you'll get what we call a little bit of the meet and greet. But more on that in a minute. Scott, over to you.
Thank you, Amelia. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, we talked a lot this week about how this really does feel like a talk show. And so that's what we do now, is talk shows. No, I just want to explain, because we would love to have questions throughout the whole program today. So you should have a couple of options to do that. You can chat to all the panelists. Myself and the artistic associate, Rachel Alderman, will be monitoring those questions, and we'll be posing them to Amelia and the other artistic guests that we have throughout the program. So as we're talking about All Wilderness, if you think of something, go ahead, chat us right away, and we will bring that question into the conversation. You should also have an opportunity to raise your hand. That means that you have a question, you raise your hand, and we will try to find some time to open up your sound or your mic to go ahead and ask that question to the group. So those are the two options that we're working with tonight. And so please keep the questions coming. That sounds great.
Great, thank you. Scott, I'm guessing, is Josh Polster on? I'll introduce Josh and we'll start. Yes, thank you.
Yes,
I actually saw him raise his hand. So to set up a little bit what we're doing, this first rehearsal conversation with actors, designers, and often a dramaturg in the room as well, to sort of set the stage, pun intended, for the journey of rehearsals, for what we're going to be creating together. It's really an amazing thing. You start with this play, everybody thinks they know what it's about, everyone thinks they know what it's about, but then the joy of being the director is you get to tell everybody what it's actually about. But usually you have a partner. So I want to welcome Josh Polster, dramaturg extraordinaire. a professor of theater history with a specialization in American theater, particularly Arthur Miller. But Josh, it's fair to say that O'Neill is also in your wheelhouse, correct? So let me welcome Josh. Is a colleague of mine from my many years at Emerson College. So when he first read that we were doing On Wilderness, he reached out to me and put me in touch with the O'Neill Society. So when we get to do this production in the fall, we will have a lot of O'Neill related events. Josh, welcome to Seen and Heard, my new talk show platform, apparently. I'm pretending I'm just alone in a rehearsal room with the creative team, and so I'll welcome you in that vein. Can you tell us a little bit about why O'Neill matters, and why it should matter to Connecticut, and how his legacy has sort of informed theater in Connecticut as well as all over the world, right? How's that for a lead-in?
That's great.
Go, Josh, go. Talk about our wilderness.
I think that Connecticut is deeply rooted in O'Neill and the theater experience. You're not going to get some of his great work like Our Wilderness and Long Day's Journey into the Night without seeing its connections to Connecticut. New London, was the childhood home of the O'Neill family. The Monte Cristo cottage that's still there where he was raised for part of his childhood is there, and that's monitored by the Eugene O'Neill Theater also. That obviously gives credit to O'Neill. So the DNA of O'Neill is largely in Connecticut, and he matters because he matters in so many different ways. Tennessee Williams, when he spoke of him, he said he gave birth to the American theater and he also died for it, which I feel is true. Before O'Neill, in terms of the American theater experience, it was largely through performance. You had actors like Edwin Forrest or Edwin Booth, but we didn't really have a significant playwright. What was going on in the early 20th century is you had melodramas like Uncle Tom's Cabin and vaudeville and minstrelstrows and things of that nature. But in terms of playwrights and English playwrights, people were looking overseas at Shaw and Shakespeare. And in the United States, we didn't have someone in theater as we did in other genres like Hawthorne, right? And he was one of our first playwrights of that brought attention to U.S. playwriting, and he really started, and that was hugely important. So, because instead of looking outward for material, it started to give credit to the American experience and really help bring a whole birth, not just a rebirth, but a birth in U.S. playwriting. And he wasn't alone. Susan Glaspell, one of the founding members of the Provincetown Players, who actually really helped launch O'Neill, really helped create the American theater experience and showed that American playwrights had something important to say. And he inspired generations and generations of playwrights, Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller, and many of the specifically tragic playwrights of today, Tony Kushner. They all look back at his work and they show how important it is.
That's awesome. You know, what I didn't realize, I mean, as you were saying, I was thinking, Wilderness, to me, seems like even his most American play. It takes place on the 4th of July. It completely celebrates the sort of idyllic 4th of July, 1906 life in New London, right? I mean, it's the beach town. We have a couple of pictures of productions at Hartford Stage of O'Neill plays. So Scott will help us see some of those as we talk a little more about O'Neill at Hartford. Our Wilderness has never been done at Hartford Stage, so we're thrilled that this fall should have been this spring. Okay, moving on, but this fall we'll get to see Our Wilderness. So we'll just go through these photos, and Josh, if you have any thoughts about these. The one thing I'd throw out when we see Long Day's Journey, a personal detail that a detail about these two plays that I love, that when our set designer joins us, we can also revisit. There we go, is that the stage directions that describe the house in Long Day's Journey and describe the house in Our Wilderness are exactly the same. It's the same house, right? Josh, that's the cottage, right? That's the,
Yeah.
It describes the screen doors and where the bookcases are, and even more wonderful to my mind is that the books on the bookshelves are itemized in both Long Day's Journey and Our Wilderness, and they're the same books because they were the formative works for O'Neill as a young man. And we'll read a little bit of that later. Oh, go ahead.
You can look at Our Wilderness as the other side of the coin of Long Day's Journey into Night.
Right. It's what he called, well, it's what I call, I'm not sure he called it, and since there's a theater historian, I'll be careful, but I think of it as O'Neill's dream play, because his real family story is Long Day's Journey. But Our Wilderness, part of why I wanted us to do Our Wilderness as my first show at Hartford Stage, is that it's about the triumph of the imagination. It's an imagined reality for O'Neill. It takes a lot of the same pieces that are in other plays and then makes it joyful. You see the choices people make that are different. That's great. Josh, thank you. And we'll keep going with the Q&A. I'm going to segue, I'm seeing time. So as part of our Hartford Stage production, we had 4 Hart students, 4 seniors at University of Hartford who were going to be in the production. And given that they're graduating, they will not get to join the cast in the fall. So it's very much a consolation prize because they're all extraordinary actors. But we've invited 2 of them to join us to read a scene. We're going to keep our reading a scene tradition. So Josh, I guess before we bring them on, I was just going to give a quick synopsis of Our Wilderness. What would you say it's about? And then we'll see if we agree.
I agree with you in terms of, O'Neill talks a lot about pipe dreams, and I think this is his pipe dream.
Oh, good.
If I'm allowed to still reference Woody Allen, it reminds me of the last scene in Annie Hall, when he writes a play about the life that he wanted.
That's actually, it's a great reference. I'm not sure you're allowed, but it is a great reference.
Right? And I think that, you can look at the play on its own, and I think it stands up as a great, beautiful, warm, funny play. And then you can connect it to the playwright's biography, as you pointed out. And you can look at, the life that he wanted and the family that he wanted. You can't look at one without seeing the other.
And we'll figure out how to do a reading of Long Day's Journey while we're doing Our Wilderness as well, so we can bring that out. The scene we're going to read, I'll give you a little backstory. The play really deals with a 17-year-old coming of age. He's madly in love, not only with a young woman, but also with poetry and art. But the play kind of develops into an ode to commitment and family and relationships, and you see it played out multi-generationally. Near the end of the play, our hero here will be read by Pedro Fontes. Pedro, welcome. Pedro is a senior at Hart High. Josh, we're going to take your video away for the scene, and then you'll come back and join us for the conversation. I'm getting, look at me. It's like a whole talk show thing here. It's very funny. Sorry, I'm just amused. And Kira, I think Kira's here as well, Kira Sheehan. So Kira and Pedro were to be in the production. And so instead they're gonna read for us a scene near the end. Pedro's playing Richard, our 17-year-old protagonist. Muriel is his one true love. The play has sort of watched their relationship fall apart, if you will, due to parental interference. And here we are on the beach the day after the 4th of July. It's late at night. We're near New London. It's very late at night, and I'm going to hand it over to you two. I will just say that Muriel runs on. Richard is waiting for her. She sees him, and she turns to go. over to you.
Oh, you can stay a little while, can't you? Please.
A little while. But I've got to be home in bed again, pretending to be asleep by 10 o'clock.
But you'll have oodles of time to do that.
Oh, Dick, you have no idea what I went through to get here tonight. But it was exciting. I had to get all undressed and into bed, and Ma came up and I pretended to be asleep, and then she went down again and I got up and dressed in such a hurry. I must look a sight, don't I?
You do not. You look wonderful.
And then I sneaked down the back stairs. Dick, you don't realize how I've been punished for your sake.
And you don't realize what I've been through for you. And what I'm in for sneaking out. And for what I did last night. What your letter made me do.
What did my letter make you do?
Prolong the story. And let the dead past bury its dead. Only it isn't past, I can tell you. What I'll catch when Pa gets hold of me.
Oh, tell me, Dick. Begin at the beginning and tell me.
Well, after your father left our place, I caught holy hell from Pa.
Dick, you mustn't swear.
Hell is the only word that can describe it. And on top of that, to torture me more, he gave me your letter.
I'm so awful sorry, Dick. Honest, I am.
I thought your love for me was dead. I wanted to die. I sat and brooded about death. Finally, I made up my mind I'd kill myself.
Dick, you didn't.
I did too. If there'd been one of Hedda Gabler's pistols around, you'd have seen if I wouldn't have done it beautifully. I thought, when I'm dead, she'll be sorry she ruined my life.
If you ever had, I'd have died too. Honest, I would.
But suicide is the act of a coward. And anyway, I thought to myself, she isn't worth it.
That's a nice thing to say.
Well, if you meant what was in that letter, you wouldn't have been worth it, would you?
But I told you, Pa.
I said to myself, I'm through with women. They're all alike.
I'm not.
And I thought, what difference does it make what I do now? I might as well forget her and lead the pace that kills and drown my sorrows. You know, I had $11 saved up to buy you something for your birthday, but I thought, she's dead to me now, and why shouldn't I throw it away? I've still got almost 5 left, Muriel, and I can get you something nice with that.
Oh, what do I care about your old presents? You tell me what you did.
After it was dark, I sneaked out and went to a low dive I know about.
Dick Miller, I don't believe you ever.
I had a highball by myself, and then I noticed one of the girls, the one that wasn't with the fullback, looking at me. She had strange-looking eyes, and then she asked me if I wouldn't drink champagne with them and come sit with her.
She must have been a nice thing. And did you?
Her name was Belle. She had yellow hair, the kind that burns and stings you.
I'll bet it was dyed. And then what happened?
Oh, we just kept drinking champagne. I bought a round, and then I had a fight with the barkeep and knocked him down because he'd insulted her.
And did you kiss her?
No, I didn't.
You did too. You're lying and you know it. You did too. And there I was right at that time, lying in bed, not able to sleep, wondering how I was ever going to see you again and crying my eyes out. Well, you... I hate you. I wish you were dead. I'm going home this minute. I never want to lay eyes on you again. And this time I mean it.
Muriel, wait. Listen.
I don't want to listen. Let me go. If you don't, I'll bite your hand.
I won't let you go. You've got to let me explain. I never... Ouch! All right. Go if you want to, if you haven't the decency to let me explain. I hate you too. I'll go and see Belle.
Wonderful, you guys. Thank you. Virtual applause. They're both graduating this May in a month. So a strange end to your senior year, but life is long And you'll be back at Hartford Stage. There's no question. There's no question. Thank you for that wonderful reading.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to switch now back to the rehearsal room dynamic. And I'm going to invite, I think, Michael and Rob, I think you guys are here. Milbo Design is a combination of these two great guys. I'm waiting to see if they're actually going to arrive. This is so strange, but they're musicologists, they're composers, they're arrangers, and they're sound designers. So they do all of it. So welcome, Michael. Welcome, Rob. Are you guys just doing audio, or can we do video as well? Hey, hi there.
Oh, I'm muted. Hold on.
Yeah, the sound designers are having trouble unmuting. It doesn't bode well for what we're doing here, gentlemen. Can I just say you both really look like the sort of scrungy sound composer, musician person. Look at the two of you.
Well, we didn't know we were to dress for the occasion.
Yeah, I mean, like clean up a little. It's Zoom, for crying out loud. I've had the pleasure of working with these guys before, and when thinking about what I wanted to do with Our Wilderness, I thought that these would be the guys to help me do it. So I don't know, should I hand it over to you guys to talk about what you think I was asking you to do for this production? Or do you want me to start us on what we're aiming for and what people will see this fall?
Well, I think you should start.
I knew I walked right into that.
Well, that's how this process began, so take it away.
So how this process begins, what Rob's referring to, is in fact that a director meets up with her designers, or in our case, Michael and Rob, I think I first pitched this to you on the phone and sort of talked about why I needed your talents on this production. So I'll try to keep this brief because I think we'd rather hear from you guys. But what I said to Rob and Michael was that I wanted a piano on stage, music throughout. There's one scene in which the family gathers around the piano, and that kind of gave me the idea that it'd be wonderful to have music of the period playing live, not only in that scene, but as transitions at the top of show and to end, and as underscoring, to really just use the talents of the actors. But one challenge with the play from 1906, and Josh, you can, when you come back, also maybe talk about some of this, but I really didn't want the play to feel like it was far away and long ago and that these people had nothing to do with us. So when I called Rob and Michael, I said, I'm thinking we start with a modern looking family, a diverse, modern dressed family that's singing a song that seems vaguely familiar, that would be a period song, but would be arranged in a modern style, whatever that might mean for us at this point. And that then during the singing of the first song, they would be changing through the magic of theater into their period clothes. And we would really invisibly shift time from now to then to make sure you as our audience really felt connected to everybody. So that was right. Is that give us a sense? So Rob, Michael, where do you go from there?
Michael, where do you go from there?
Come on, Rob.
I think I'm still muted. Hold on.
You're not.
Oh, good.
We hear you.
Well, where we go from there, I think, is because we're being transported back. We will be a little anachronistic. I think that's one of the things that you had discussed, and
That's right.
I think because some of these plays can be a little creaky and dusty, how do you bring to life and bring it to our life, our current life, in a way that's palpable and emotional, immediate. And one of the ways that your great idea to have a live piano player is extraordinary, because we rarely get to do that, and to hear a live instrument on stage. The boat scene you had mentioned.
That's what we just heard. The scene we just heard happens in an abandoned rowboat on the beach. Very romantic.
And that could be a combination through that transition of actors that play certain instruments. We had mentioned violin, maybe a guitar or something they could carry, hold, and then going into that scene, we could start with water, of course, and it's a night scene, but maybe it's a slow underscore with that piano. And that might be a motif that we've done from earlier to say, okay, this is the lovers. And
It sounds wonderful.
so all of that, yeah, go ahead.
No, what I was going to say is part of what I think is so great about sound and music, and you guys are such experts in both the history and then the creation of, is how music can transport you to a different time. That you can really have, really have a sense of period just by an arrangement of certain instruments or a certain emphasis. So that was something that I'm really looking forward to us playing with. And also with a multicultural cast, how do we adapt some of what we assume to be 1906, which is just a very narrow idiom that we might be familiar with, and really play with all the different variations that could happen musically depending on the performer. Yeah? Does that make any sense?
Completely. Yeah. Rob?
Good designers always, good designers make you feel like you're smart. It's very helpful in a conversation.
Except we don't do that exclusively.
No, I know. No. And Rob and I have argued about stuff and disagreed. We did a production of Awake and Sing, Clifford Odets' play, which I would love to also do one day at Hartford Stage. And Rob, do you remember we argued about the baby crying? Do you remember this?
Remind me.
So I had at first said we wanted a recorded baby sound, but nothing else in the show was really fake. And so we played with some different baby cries and thought about, you guys made a really great cue that sounded utterly real, but we all knew there wasn't a baby in the wings, right? So I just remember you being incredibly helpful to me and sort of pushing me towards the abstraction that production was going for. So whether or not you remember it, I remember it, and fondly, so.
And what did we end up doing then?
Oh, look.
Oh, wow.
Wow. We have good tech. That's the production of Awake and Sing. Those of you who might have seen We All Fall Down at the Huntington, on the far right corner sitting, that's Stephen, who played the father. Willa Bowe at the center, an amazing actor. So thank you for that. What did we do? We ended up just having them comment on the crying, but we didn't hear anything, which was better.
Well, then it made it easier for Michael and I to do our jobs.
Cutting the cue and done. Best cue in the show.
They often are.
It's true. Well, one thing I loved about working with you guys, which is very true, if Jim Noon has made it on, I know he was teaching, till now on Zoom. So, but is to have a design team that really argues with you and with each other and gets you to the better place. For a sound designer to give you a note on staging and have it be a really good note is a great gift, right? Or an acting note. Not about my acting, although those, I get those too.
Well, having a wife who's a director and an actor, there's a lot of conversation going on all the time.
That's right. That's right.
But that's one of the great things about you, working with you, and I'm not just blowing. It's wonderful to work with a collaborator, with somebody who's listening, who's interested in exploring. And it's always been fun, the shows we've done together.
It's been great. Let's pull up the set from the model, if you don't mind, Scott. I don't know even if Jim's not here, and I'm guessing Tilly's not here yet either. Set and Costumes is joining us too. And we can do question and answer throughout this whole thing, folks.
Yeah, I'll pull up the images. This is Scott. But there was a question about how much music is written before a production starts versus while a production is happening. I wonder if you guys can answer or speak to that.
Well, in the case of this production, there are several period pieces that are called for in the script. And I think our plan is to respect those and use those.
Right.
In addition, we've done some research on period pieces other period pieces that we might be able to draw on to use for transitions. And Malia, do you want to talk a little bit more about the transition idea?
So
how we use music?
Yeah, so when you're in the theater and it goes from one scene to another, for me, that's a place where a whole another life of the play can begin, right? That the transitions are weaving the production together so that you're picking up where the text leaves off, and there's a way of showing relationships. There's a way of having supporting characters have a little more stage time so you get to know them better, and to really give a feeling of what that moment in history is, while they're moving scenery, to be perfectly frank, right? I mean, it's a way of creating a timelessness and a flow to the production, which I love. I also want to say here that part of what's great about this team and Scott, I would say pull up whatever we can sort of free associate around the images as well. So this is the model. It's called a white model. Guess why? No, I'm sorry. It's the first model, the set designer, thank you, Michael, for laughing. It's the first model the designer makes, and then once that's approved, then it becomes a color model. The color model does exist, but it's locked in the studio at Boston University, where Jim also teaches, and we don't get to see that. So this is, it's as hard to describe as you're looking at it here, but the point is the music and what's basically an empty deck, a boardwalk with stairs that will work as inside the house, outside the house. Yeah. And you see there's a screen door, and then there's a feeling of being underneath. Oh, thank you, Scott. There's the feeling of being what are those? The wharf, the dock, right? Those are piers. No, what are the, someone's thinking of the word, but I'm not checking the chat. But the music and the set are meant to evoke a constant theatricality. Why are we in a theater instead of at the movies? Oh, James Noon is here. Yay, Jim, come join and help us a little bit think about what the physical space for a play like this is. If as I started by saying that the set for this would be the same as Long Day's Journey into Night, but then you see the pictures of Long Day's Journey into Night, and they're all very specific, detailed interiors. And we're not doing that. So Rob's point about the music and transitions is part of, hello, Mr. Noon. Here's our extraordinary set designer, Jim Noon. We should put all of your bios online somewhere so people can be suitably impressed with all of you. I'm not going to take up time to sing all your praises, but that our idea in approaching our wilderness, Jim, was to emphasize the theatricality of it, the magic of theater. Why is it different to see this story in a theater instead of on film or reading it? So do you want to talk a little bit about the set?
Well, also it's a space of memory we were trying to create, a place that has elements of what we think of, what that town would have looked like, what that space would have looked like. It's not realistic, but it's memories of a house, right. It's memories of a war, memories of a summer vacation town. It's a little Shakespearean in its set up. It also allows us to just have a couch on stage. We don't have to always complete the picture because there's elements of the picture all through the space,
right?
All through what's upstage, and it helps push us downstage a little.
So we're concerned with getting the actors closer to all of you in the audience, so that it's really very immediate. So if you can imagine the live music and the open set, it creates that atmosphere.
And at times, the ghosts of the memory can sort of be. We were going to toy around with this in the rehearsal room. Are people sort of hanging around upstage or not? So it's always a sense of a place of memory.
Right.
not fully realized.
Right. Any questions on all this? Tilly will join us soon. We could actually look at some of those sketches maybe in between. Yeah, Rob.
I didn't really answer the question earlier about whether we.
Oh, right.
In the midst of the rehearsal process or prior to it, but Michael and I will probably bring in. We'll have conversations with Malia. We'll probably bring some things in to start with, but hopefully we'll still have the music director who's going to perform live on stage that we hope to hire. We hope to have, and we hope he's still available.
We do.
He's an enormously talented guy, and we'll be working with him and the other cast members, depending on what their skill sets are and what they can bring to the production. But we will plan it, but it will become very improvisational in its own way throughout the process.
And the timing always changes and the mood changes. So we think one song really works in a transition, and then we actually watch it run in a rehearsal and it makes us want to kill ourselves, and that's not good. And so we swap it out for something else, right? You can't be a purist and do this, right? You have to just be willing to mess with all elements all the time.
Right, and we're able to do that because we're human beings and we're in the space and it's happening. You know, poor James, he has to plan everything ahead of time and have a shop build it. And he doesn't get as much flexibility as the rest of us, but
although what Jim does is leave a lot of open spaces so that through tech he can improvise as well. It's one of I would call that one of your tricks, Mr. Noon.
Well, we create a space that the production can play in for during the period. It doesn't. We're not saying this is this and that's that.
Yeah, and I like to move the furniture around. It's really helpful.
This is Scott. There's actually a question kind of about that. One, when live music is happening on the stage, like where do they go and how do they move? And, you know, is there an orchestra pit? Kind of a question about that, which is also it kind of relates to set and sound.
That's right. Well, we actually thought a lot about where the piano goes, right, Jim? It's just a piano, and then all the other instruments would be carried on and off by the actors. But do you want to talk about the piano?
The piano is will be sunken down into the floor downstage, or house left, downstage right, sort of in the vom area, so it doesn't block too many seats. But he'll always be present to the company and to the audience.
The idea is really that the musicians are actors, the actors are musicians, and part of why Rob's saying we have we had a wonderful offer out to a music director who we hope will be available, who's also a terrific performer and an interesting person just to watch. Yes, so it works on all levels.
There's another question here from Mickey, wondering, you know, there's a lot of modern classics, and it often seems like when you're bringing back a piece, a team of creative folks are trying to reinterpret or reinvent or rethink through a piece. And he's wondering like why that seems to happen and kind of what that process is like.
Okay. I think when we set up to do a play, we really can't think about it as a classic. Every play you do is a new play because you're doing it with this team for this audience for the first time. So part of the challenge is, I don't know if it was Rob, you said, or I don't remember who said it, forgive me, but the sort of sense of dusting off the play, of it feeling, you hear a title, I call it a little the Mona Lisa problem. You know the Mona Lisa is a great work of art. Has it moved you? Have you looked at it closely? Has it really spoken to you? So of course it's a great work, but what does that mean to you emotionally, to your life? So you might know O'Neill's a great playwright, but does that matter? You're having a night at the theater. You should have a good time. You should be moved. You should connect to the actors. You should connect to the characters. In order to do that, I think you have to treat it as a new play. You might end up, Jim, we saw the set of Awake and Sing fly by before. And something that was interesting there is that the set for our production of Awake and Sing at the Huntington was actually the exact same floor plan of the original set. It's just the frame around it was different. So that there's ways it's not like if something is evident as working, you're not going, well, I'm not going to do it that way because, but it's rather discovering what is in the essence of a play and production for all of us now. Guys, and is Tilly here? No, Tilly. We should show her sketches because they're fabulous and I'm worried about time.
I think every generation hears the words differently too. So you always put the lens on of whatever, where you are and look at a play from that perspective.
That's right.
Yeah, the time that we're in, what's going on around us obviously affects everything that we read and everything that we hear.
And plays speak differently at different times. I think right now our wilderness, especially in the near future, is going to speak very loudly to an audience, and it'll have a stronger voice than it might have had even this spring.
I think that's true. I mean, it's sort of an awakening and a return to a kind of idealism, which will be really lovely to have in October.
Yeah.
And November.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and share.
No comment.
Let me go ahead and share some of Tilly's sketches, Melia, if you want to speak.
That would be awesome.
Great. So let's just see.
So this is the beginning. So this is a modern family, if you will, right? It's our community. They're intentionally quick, right? Friends watching, this isn't, of course, but it's just to give a sense of color. This is an initial round of sketches to make sure we're all kind of in the same ballpark. When we all met, this is what Tilly shared. So this is, say you start with this group of people in these clothes singing what sounds like a contemporary song, and then keep going, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
And then little by little, they change to these people. So, you look at these clothes and I think there's a tendency to think, oh, they're not me, they're far away. Things were different then. And my hope is, oh, I just see that Tilly's there. Okay. So I'll keep talking, but Tilly will join us, our costume designer. The hope is in this transformation that you lose track of the transformation. In fact, this will be done pretty subtly, and one by one, perhaps, we'll figure out once we're on our feet how we do it, but that you'll suddenly be transported into 1906, that the costumes will have changed, the music will have changed, and without you realizing it, you're already at the heart of the story and with this family, and you're as committed to this family as if they were, a contemporary family to you, basically. So there's Tilly Grimes, our wonderful costume designer, also coming straight out of another meeting. So it's Zoom life for everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome. So Tilly, we've been sort of all over the place, just talking first rehearsal, meet and greet kind of stuff about why you're doing this project the way you're doing it, say, and I don't thoughts you might have about Our Wilderness or O'Neill.
Yes. Hello. Nice to join you. Sorry to be late. Yeah, it's quite exciting I've never worked on O'Neill before. I was rather excited to join the world that he makes because he writes such real humans from a time gone by. And yet there's an incredible humanity and relevance to what each member in the family is going through and completely echoes now. So the first time we met up at Hartford, Melia was talking about how important and interesting it was for her to explore a lens that we access the play through of, like, what does it mean to see a Connecticut family, or what could be a Connecticut family, and then travel back in time with them, so that it's not a show that can become modern. It's too of its time and beautiful and delicate and unique, and there is a nostalgia to remembering our grandparents or great-grandparents from this time that's really beautiful, I think, when we read or experience O'Neill. And also what I was excited about when we first met was how we set up the story so that we can relate to it more sympathetically or from a fresher lens, perhaps. And so we sort of started talking about how the opening scene works, and I loved Melia's idea that we want to travel back in time. We want to hear the sort of sound of the period on these modern bodies that we recognize in clothes, not costumes. And then as we go back into the play and each person emerges from the morning breakfast and comes down into the living room and is sitting there about to have their 4th of July day, we recognize that person from the past who we've just seen in their modern day existence. And I thought that was a really lovely lens to access through. And then once we're inside the play, instead of making a really, not that I don't love really beautiful things, I love really beautiful things, but making a version that is actually about putting the humanity front and center. And, you know, when I come in the house, the shoes come off and I roll the sleeves up, or you know, for the right crowd, you unhook your bra, or you kind of settle in a little bit and make yourself at home because it's your personal space, and finding the idiosyncrasies and the moments of relax that happen in the private space of the home, that then when you have an outsider coming in to talk about the relationship with his daughter or what have you, there is a shift in what that means to exist. And a lot of that is in some ways written into O'Neill's stage directions. But I think we were sort of excited about expanding on that through working with the actor, so that we even felt more connected to that as a modern day audience. And then in terms of like how we experience the clothes, instead of it seeming like a perfect all white summer crisp linen day, it having actually more color and texture and idiosyncrasy to how each of them dress, and less a sort of full perfect picture.
Can we see some of the sketches, Scott, as people ask questions? Maybe.
Yeah, give me 1 sec.
Sorry?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
No, you don't have a second. No. You guys, Jim and Tilly had worked together before. Jim and Rob and Michael had worked together before. DM, our lighting designer, couldn't join us today. But it's again, it's sort of the magic of theater, if you will, that this is the first time this group of people has worked together. And look at these are so.
Well, this sketch I think is going to change.
That's the one, I know. This is the Lily Miller we don't like.
We don't love this Lily Miller. I think this gets a little too fussy, and I think we find it gets a little commenty or sight gaggy on her. And I think one of the things we were talking about with our characters is not creating any external judgments. So you know yourself, right. you encounter any human, you can't help but react to the visual clues that you get from them. And I think one of the things that we want to do in this production is not tip our hand as to how you should feel about any of them, but more just allow them to be very real and allow the acting performer to sort of live very authentically inside their clothes, so that as you get to know them, you get to understand them and you react to them. You're not prejudging them or reacting to a visual before you get to know them.
That's right.
And I think that sketch gets a bit heavy. And then the other thing I'll say is that this is a very early round of sketches. So they're not my favorite.
I know. I begged. I begged.
Apologize for them. I'm so sorry.
You don't. They're lovely. I begged Tilly to show them, even though these would not be the sketches you would see in the lobby, you know, before. They will all have changed. But I just think they have a lovely life.
Casting, which is one of the things I really think is incredibly important, is that when we start to figure out what the bodies are that we're actually putting the clothes on, is to take this initial impulse, which is a very quick 10-second sketch, and put it on and craft it onto what the performer is bringing and how they live and what their scale of body is and how they hold themselves, because that's usually what media has reacted to in a casting process that is excited about, so that then I can start joining that conversation and making them feel more real. So I'll just beg your patience as you look.
Yes, because they're terrible. You really should be apologizing a lot for these sketches.
Well, you know, I'm English. It comes very naturally.
So these are wonderful. We're almost out of time in this, really keeping it to an hour model so that none of us get too wearied by Zoom, even though I see weary faces by Zoom all day. A couple of last questions before we go to our poem.
There is a question. Yeah, there's a question about casting and what is our plan around casting, Melia, now that we're shifting to the fall.
So our hope is we have an extraordinary company that we made offers to. I can't name names because I don't know who's going to be available. We've just announced the postponement. You guys online with us are the first people to hear that we're officially postponing to the fall. So the designers and their agents just got an email today saying, please, please, please. The actors and their agents will get that. It's looking for a company that is varied in every way that they can be varied. It's making an ideal family, not a genetically naturalistic family, if you will. It's really about a combination of voices and people. The singing is secondary, but they will all, any of them who can sing, and we're very lucky in the offers that did go out. We have a couple of major Broadway voices. So it's a play with music. It's not a musical, but it'll be a company that has wit and warmth. And yes, the races, the colors of skin that Tilly portrayed, we don't know. It's what I said to Tilly was, we'll hopefully have a very multicultural cast, really reflecting what our society looks like now and not specifically what 1906 New London looked like. And we're hoping in the upper lobby to have photos of contemporary families from Connecticut, as well as some period photos. So it's really all about celebrating Hartford. I should say this is right, has anyone talked about, I just realized I'm wearing the heart because this week would have been our Heart of Connecticut Ball. I think Cynthia, maybe we'll talk more about that, or I'll look at my notes and see what I'm supposed to say. But this would have been our gala, and you'll see a few of us are wearing these hearts. So to celebrate Hartford Stage being the heart of Connecticut, if you will. I'm gonna shift to, do I shift now to poem, Scott?
Yeah, we're running close to time, so maybe you want to introduce the poem, and then the folks coming in to help read the poem to conclude this program.
So this time it was really, really easy. For those of you who haven't been here before, we conclude every week with a communal reading of an excerpt from a play or piece of poetry. So this time it was really easy to pick because this is from the Rubaiyat by Omar Khayyam. It's the piece that influenced O'Neill to title the play this. And reading from this poem, I'm gonna read our guests now who are helping read. Ed Genest. Ed, if you're there, wave. Ed was in Diosa at Hartford Stage just a few years ago with me, so I welcome Ed back. Wonderful actor. It was Eddie Sanchez's play when Michael Wilson was our artistic director. Michael Wilson is also joining us to read part of the poem. Julia Weston, a young actor in Christmas Carol for many years. Welcome. Welcome, Julia. Sarah what are we good? There's Edmund. Hello, Edmund. Sarah Milnamo. Am I pronouncing that right? I'm so sorry.
It's Milnamo.
Milnamo. Okay. So she was our flying ghost this past Christmas. She's a graduating musical theater senior. Brendan Howes, Stage One board member. There's Brendan. Thank you for joining us. And Jennifer Weston, who is one of our extraordinary house managers and happens to be Julia's mom. And I think you're all recognizing Michael Preston's face there, our beloved Scrooge, professor at Trinity College. Thank you. Alexis Gardner, a soon-to-be graduate of the Hart School with a degree in musical theater. And Michelle McFarland, our neighborhood ambassador and extraordinary library ally. She's a staffer at the Hartford Public Library. Passionate Hartford native and lover of the arts. So what a great group. This is our community. Thank you all for joining us. And Ed will start us off an excerpt from the Rubaiyat.
Let's start one more time. Ed, I'm gonna unmute you. Give us 1 sec. We're getting a lot of feedback this time around.
I unmuted myself.
Great. We can now hear you.
Should I do a joke now? Or
No, go ahead.
A book of verses underneath the bough, a jug of wine, a loaf of bread, and thou, beside me, singing in the wilderness.
I think Jennifer and Julia may be frozen, Melia. So maybe you want to pick those lines up. Sorry, Jennifer and Julia.
I will pick that up. Edmund, give it again and I'll jump in.
A book of verses underneath the bough, a jug of wine, a loaf of bread, and thou beside me, singing in the wilderness.
Oh, wilderness were paradise enough.
Some for the glories of this world, and some sigh for the prophet's paradise to come.
Brendan?
Oh, yep, sorry.
It's all right. This is called cue pickup. We work on this in rehearsal. It's why rehearsals are good.
Absolutely. I've never done this before. Take the cash and let the credit go, nor heed the rumble of a distant drum.
Look to the blowing rose about us, low laughing, she says.
Into the world I blow, at once the silken tassel of my pursed hair and its treasure on the garden throw.
Amelia, why don't you pick up for Michelle? I think she dropped off.
Oh, no, are you there, Michelle?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Read, Michelle, read.
Yes, I'm on stage. And
yay!
Those who husbanded the golden grain, and those who flung it to the winds like rain.
Alike to no such aureate earth are turned, as burned once, men once dug up again.
The worldly hope men set their hearts upon turns ashes, or it prospers.
Y luego, como la nieve sobre la faz polvoriente del desierto, lucen una hora o dos y pasan. And anon, like snow upon the desert's dusty face, lighting a little hour or two, is gone. Thank you all so much. It's an extraordinary poem. It's really about the transience of life and how you have to grab love in the moment, right? So take cash, not credit. That's I love this version of this translation. Seize the day, seize love. I've lost my notes. Let's see, I'm coming back. Here we are. Okay. See, I'm trying to pretend that I can just talk to all of you, but just trying to cover a lot of ground. So we're gonna start bringing in our virtual community. Before we do our final toast, this is the 5-minute warning, or 3-minute warning, get your drink. Those of you lucky enough to have a gin fizz, okay. Some of us just have, I'm really suffering with the single malt, so. A few things to let you all know as you're all joining us. Look to dates. We'll be announcing dates soon for our Wilderness and History of Comedy. A little plug that tomorrow night, same Zoom place. No, different Zoom place. It's the Mark Twain House Zoom place. Jacob Padron and I are talking with Frank Rizzo. So join us for that. Really, the important thing is to let you know that the gala virtual auction, that's why we're wearing these lovely hearts. Everyone on staff who's got a heart and board members who are wearing your hearts. So we start on Saturday. There's like so many really amazing, cool things, including some of the people who you just heard from might be auction items. I'm not giving anything away. As you heard Cynthia say, we reached our 50K match. Hooray, hooray. And now to our next match. Cynthia, what is our next match for?
It's another 50,000 that'll be matched dollar for dollar.
We need it. So everyone needs it. If you can't give, then just keep showing up so I can see your faces and know that there's a community that cares about theater. To the arts in this country, I don't think those of us who are not committed already to our arts organizations fully understand what we're going to be missing if after this pandemic. you know, we aren't all supported. So let's raise a glass. Is everybody on now? So to the board, to the staff, to the artists who joined us today, to our wilderness in the future, to past artistic directors, to the history and legacy of Hartford Stage, to the people of Connecticut, to the heart of Connecticut. L'chaim. Cheers to Hartford Stage. Wonderful to see you all. Oh, next week, wait, drink and then I'll tell you. Next week, we have some wonderful actors joining us. Marin Ireland, who only got 2 minutes 2 weeks ago because she logged on late. And Robert Eli Thompson. I don't know if Judith Thompson is on, and I don't know if she knew that Robert Eli Thompson is joining us. And John Andrew Morrison and a few other actors to talk about dream roles, nightmare moments, what they would like to play at Hartford Stage, and, you know, other embarrassing stories. Maybe, I don't know. But so join us next week, 5 o'clock next Wednesday. All of you, stay well. Thank you for being here for this hour. Thank you, our wilderness team.
Cheers.
Take care. Cheers. Everyone's unmuted. You can cheer.
Good.
Congratulations
Hooray.
to the Hart students.
Yeah.
Here, here. To the graduating seniors. Right. Seltzer. Yeah. Tall.
There's Emily. Hey, Emily.
Hi to those you know. Yes.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.